You are 3 months from home and the road has taken everything it's going to take from you except your life, and you're no longer certain it won't take that too. The camel carrying your remaining silk collapsed this morning outside Merv. Not dramatically. It simply stopped and folded itself onto the ground and didn't get back up. The way things in this desert stop without ceremony, without warning, as if they were done long before you noticed. 2 bolts of silk, gone. A third of what you have left. You stand over the animal in the early heat and do the accounting in your head that you've been doing every morning for 90 days, and the numbers still don't work and you keep walking anyway because stopping is a different kind of math entirely. You left Chang'an in spring, which was the right season and the wrong year, though you didn't know about the wrong year until you were too far along the road to turn back. The merchant house your father built over 30 years of careful work had taken you on at 20 as a junior factor, which meant you carried ledgers and checked weights and learned the difference between a man who would honor an agreement and a man who would honor it only until something better appeared. That distinction, it turned out, was most of what the job was. Your father wanted you to make the Western run, not because the margins were best, they weren't. The sea routes were more reliable even if slower, but because he believed a merchant who had not made the overland passage was a merchant who did not understand what the goods actually cost, not in coin. In everything else, you understood this to be wisdom. You understand it differently now. The caravan assembled over 6 weeks, 43 merchants, 200 animals, a small company of armed escorts who were expensive and worth every coin and still not quite enough. The escort captain was a Sogdian named Nane Vondak who had made the Western run 11 times and had the particular quality of a man who has survived things by being more patient than the things trying to kill him. He briefed the caravan on the first morning with the economy of someone who had given the briefing so many times the words had worn smooth. Stay together. Trust the water guides. When I say we move, we move. When I say we stop, we stop. Don't bargain with the bandits. Don't run from them either. You asked what to do instead. He looked at you for a moment. Then he said, "Look like you're not worth the trouble." That was the first lesson. The first month was education in the form of discomfort. The road east of Dunhuang through the Taklamakan is not a road that forgives the idea that you know something. Heat that makes the air visible, shimmering off sand that goes in every direction with the same indifference. Water rationed to amounts that feel like insult until you understand they're actually survival, that your body, which you have fed and housed and considered your entire life, requires so much less than you believe to remain technically alive. You stopped thinking about comfort around day 12. You stopped expecting it around day 20. By day 30, you had rearranged your entire conception of what conditions needed to be present for life to continue, and the new conception was much smaller and more accurate than the old one. The oasis towns appeared at intervals that Nanai Vandak predicted with the confidence of a man reading text. Dunhuang, Turfan, Kashgar. Each one a compressed city of competing needs, merchants arriving from the east carrying silk and porcelain. Merchants arriving from the west carrying glass and lapis lazuli and horses that were worth more in Chang'an than you'd make in 5 years. All of them needing to trade and rest and repair and not be cheated more than was customary. Customary was a sliding concept. You learned to read it the way you'd learn to read faces at home, by accumulation, by pattern, by the specific quality of a pause before an answer. Kashgar was where the caravan fractured, not dramatically. 3 of the 43 merchants decided to take the southern route through the Karakoram and into India. That was their right. Nane Vandak did not try to stop them. He told you afterward, quietly, that the 3 of them had been arguing among themselves since Turfan, and a caravan with internal conflict is a caravan that makes mistakes. Better they take their conflict somewhere else. You asked if they'd make it. He said, probably. Probably was the most optimistic word he used about most things. West of Kashgar, the road climbed. The Pamirs in summer are navigable, and in summer is relative because at altitude summer has a loose relationship with warmth. 2 animals died on the passes. One merchant from the northern provinces developed something in his lungs that Nanai Vandak identified by sound and expression as serious, and at the next settlement the man made the decision to stop and recover and potentially never move again. You watched him make that decision sitting against a mud brick wall, breathing in the shallow way of a man negotiating with his own body. He looked at you when you passed and you looked back and neither of you said anything because there was nothing that needed saying. You were 22 days past the Pamirs when the bandits came. Nanai Vandak had said, "Don't run. Look like you're not worth the trouble." The trouble with that instruction is that a caravan of 40 merchants and 200 animals is visibly worth considerable trouble, and the men who came out of the low hills on a gray morning in Sogdiana were not confused about this. There were maybe 30 of them, mounted, patient, in the way of people who have done this before and know how it ends. What happened in the next 2 hours is something you have told in different versions depending on who was asking and what they needed to hear. The version for your father emphasizes the escort's effectiveness and the relatively contained loss. The version you tell yourself at night is more accurate and less useful, and you're not going to tell it here either. What matters for the accounting? You lost 1 escort, 4 animals, and approximately a quarter of the silk you'd been carrying since Chang'an. Nanai Vandak negotiated the rest through a conversation conducted at close range with people who had a significant tactical advantage and managed to sound like a discussion between business partners disagreeing about terms. Afterward, he told you, the opening offer is never the real offer. They wanted everything. They took a quarter. Everyone continues. You asked how he knew they'd stop at a quarter. He said, you learn what each road costs. This one costs a quarter. Merv arrived like a rumor becoming true. 40 days after the bandits, 3 days after the camel you would lose this morning, you walk into the city that sits at the crossroads of everything, and the smell of it hits you: bread, animals, smoke. 100 languages competing for the same air, and something in you that has been clenched for 5 months releases without asking your permission. You stand in the market street and you are, for a moment, simply a person standing in a place rather than a problem trying to solve itself. The silk moves quickly in Merv. You have a contact your father arranged, a Sogdian merchant named Maniak who has been managing the family's Western relationships for 12 years and who greets you with the cautious warmth of a man who knows your name but not yet your quality. He looks at the remaining silk. He does not comment on the quantity. He asks about the condition of the road east of the Pamirs, what the water was like, whether Nanai Vandak's assessment of the route timing was accurate. You understand that he's calibrating you, checking whether what you observed matches what an experienced observer would have observed. You answer carefully and completely. He nods in a way that costs him nothing and tells you something. The negotiation for the silk takes 3 days, which is 2 days longer than you expected and 1 day shorter than Maniak's opening position implied. The price you reach is not the price you wanted and is better than the price you feared, and Maniak explains, while pouring tea you have not tasted anything like in 5 months, that the market for Eastern silk in the Western cities has been complicated this season by a supply from a different route that arrived ahead of you. He says this with no apology and no malice. The way weather is described. It happened. It affects the price. Neither of you caused it. You sit with the number. You do the accounting for the 14th time. The lost animals, the bandit quarter, the dead camel this morning, and its 2 bolts, the costs of water guides and escort, and the oasis tolls and the small mordant payments at every checkpoint that everyone pretended were not required and were absolutely required. The number you've arrived at in Merv minus all of that is not the number your father sent you to get. It is a number, and it is real, and you will carry it home. What you did not expect to carry home is everything else. Nanai Vandak finds you the evening before the return caravan assembles. He has already contracted with a westbound group going to Antioch and will be on the road again in 4 days. He has probably been on the road, in one direction or another, for most of the last 20 years. You ask him if he has a home he returns to. He considers this as if the question has a specific answer he's deciding whether to share. Then he says, the road is the home. The cities are the stops. People who think it's the other way around have trouble on the road. You think about this for a long time. The return takes less than you expect and more than you can afford to spare. Nanai Vandak is going the other direction, so you attach to a different caravan, eastbound, with a new escort captain who is competent in the way of someone who has not yet been tested in the way that reveals whether competence is enough. He is fine. The road is the road. The Pamirs again, the passes, the altitude, Kashgar, Turfan, the Taklamakan with its particular quality of trying to erase you by making you irrelevant to its scale. Dunhuang. Chang'an appears on the morning of the 219th day. You have been gone 7 months and 11 days. You have covered roughly 5,000 li in each direction on roads that are not roads in the way the roads at home are roads, more like agreements between geography and necessity, renegotiated constantly. You weigh 14 jin less than when you left. You have lost 2 fingers' width of hearing in your right ear from something that happened in the passes and has not fully resolved. You carry enough silver to show your father a profit that will satisfy the ledger without satisfying either of you, because the ledger doesn't have a line for the camel, the escort who didn't come back, the merchant against the mud brick wall. Your father meets you at the gate of the merchant house. He looks at you the way Maniak looked at the silk, assessing condition, calibrating against expectation. He asks about the road first, not the profit. The road. You tell him about the Pamirs, about Nanai Vandak, about the bandit negotiation and what a quarter costs, about the camel this morning and the arithmetic that still doesn't work and why you kept walking anyway. He listens without interrupting, which is something he has never done before in your memory. When you finish, he says, "Now you know what the goods cost." You say, "Yes." He says, "Will you go back?" You stand in the gate of the merchant house you have known your entire life, in the city you were born in, surrounded by the specific smell of home that you couldn't have described before you left, and can now describe exactly because absence is how you learn the shape of things. You think about the road as home and the cities as stops. You think about the number in the ledger and the number that doesn't have a ledger. You think about a man breathing shallowly against a mud brick wall in a settlement whose name you never learned. You say, "Yes." Your father nods. He already knew. He sent you for exactly this reason, not to bring back silk, but to become the kind of person who, having seen what the road costs, chooses to pay it again. That's what the merchant house runs on. Not goods, not routes, the willingness of people who know the price to keep moving anyway. You don't know yet whether that's strength or something else. You go inside. The road will still be there in the spring. It always is.